Arizona, can we start at the beginning and can you tell us the story of what's happened in your life from the very start?
Okay, what I can tell you is that before I started looking into my life, back in 1989, I was starting to have flashes of things, and my life was not what it seemed to be, which is why I started looking into it. And what I found out was that I had a lot of missing time, and a whole lot of missing time, as to what had occurred in my life. And when I started looking into what had happened in my life, it was the only way that at the time that I knew, was to start going to see a therapist. Within a year, I was talking about memories of being sexually abused by my father, which was part of what was supposed to happen. And I was starting to talk about mind control issues, and I was talking about ritual abuse issues at the time, and I didn't have the whole thing put together. It's taken me years, all these years, it's taken approximately almost 10 years to put this together, what has happened to me. And in the process, I have lost everything that I ever had in my life, and anything I held dear in my life. I was bred for this role that I fulfill, and it was planned from before my birth, and it was because of the bloodline of my mother's family, which comes down through Ireland, but before that it began in France. It was through the Marquis de Stac, which he came to Ireland and changed the name to Stack, and then I was chosen, and the birth was planned. My parents were forced to move down to this area for the reason that the High Council is down here, which is, there are 6 councils of 13 in this country, and the High Council is down here.
We're talking the United States?
The United States, yes. And so from the time that I was a baby, I was being abused and traumatized, and on purpose, for the mind control that they need someone to go through to do whatever they say, to be as just a puppet in that they can control every move. And you don't remember, I didn't remember a lot of things, because I have, as a result of all of this mind control, split off many parts that all hold memories, hold feelings, hold programs, hold information, and I've been working very hard to pull all of that up. And it's been a long, slow process for me, because there don't seem to be a lot of people in the field that I only felt was the only way I could go was psychiatric and psychological. They don't seem to know what is really going on, and I believe that a lot of them are afraid of being sued should they suggest something, and so they cannot lead or suggest. And it's been a process of me having to trigger myself to remember, and be around people that can help me with that can't really be touched by the False Memory Syndrome Foundation.
So what happened? You say you were abused as a child as part of this compartmentalizing of your mind. What went on after that, as you got older?
Well, they start with wanting to make you an obedient slave at first, and so they do a lot of sensory deprivation, they do a lot of sensory overload, and they switch between the two, and they do out-and-out torture. They take a small child and they electroshock. In my case, it was electroshock to the brain, and they would take away my chance to sleep. They kept me awake for many hours at night, would not let me sleep. And I was also told things, as this was before the age of 5, I was told things such as, they would make me drink water, and they would say, if you pass here and you're going to have to drink it. And they would make me drink it. And if you have bowel movement, you're going to have to eat the feces, which is also what happened to me. And then they would play, there was a programmer that was programming me, a very infamous person in history who actually has been in this country, and he was known as Dr. Green. Who he actually was Dr. Mengele, from Joseph Mengele, from the concentration camps in Germany, and he stayed a lot at China Lake Naval Weapons Station out here in Southern California, in the desert area. And I would be around this man a lot, and he used to tell me that the scar that he had on the left cheek of his face was actually from, he was into fencing, and that it was from that, but actually the scar on his cheek was from one of his own programming techniques, that he would put a child in a box and with a sword and tell the child to defend the box, even if it meant his own death. Then he'd tell another child to break into the box, and which this child would do, and then the other child would then jump out of the box and shove the sword or the lance straight through the other child. And at one point he got into it where this child actually got him in the face with the sword. And he would wear a huge emerald ring on his left hand, on this middle finger, and he would twist this emerald around, and for programming, and he was into using long-colored ribbons of different colors, and you had to choose a certain ribbon, or you were given a certain ribbon, and that meant that this certain thing was going to happen to you. And it was like picking sticks out, or drawing sticks out of a hand, out of someone's hand. I saw games of Russian roulette played where it was chosen beforehand that a child would die, and the child would put the gun up to his head and pull the trigger, and this child would end up dying. But it was meant to scare all of us, and keep us in terror, as there were many other children that were around me that went through the same thing. I have run into people from my childhood that have known me, and I've recognized their names, and even if they change their names and change their hair color, as I have done, they have recognized me, or I have recognized them, and I know their name, they know my name. There isn't any way for this to have happened. It's just beyond coincidence. And when you get older, I mean, they start taking, this programmer in particular, Mengele, would take me to rituals. I went to rituals with him all over this country and in Britain and in France, and it was known by intelligence agencies in this country that this man was here. They brought him here.
Is that Project Paperclip you're talking about?
Yeah. Through the OSS. And my family, or my so-called family, are all DID. They have not. They are very well programmed, and they have not sought help. They have not gone in, tried to figure out what's happened. They believe they've had this certain kind of life that they've had, and as far as they are concerned, I am crazy. And they have much different memories of what I have, and I was always told certain things by my parents that my sisters were never told. And biologically, I have to add at this point that my mother is my mother. I am not biologically related to my father. And this has to do with the bloodlines, and his was considered impure. And this is all about purity of the bloodline. And that is why I am involved in this. There are people that are involved in this that it is not so much because of bloodline, but they have the ability to dissociate and be used as slaves by these people.
You say that you come from a certain bloodline, and there is this obsession with bloodlines that this Brotherhood Illuminati have. Why is that? Because
what first started coming out was about the Aryans, and the purity of the blood. And what it's all about is that the blood and the menstrual blood contains something that is important for the propagation of this race that is controlling things on this planet. And these people that are in the organization that the Council of 13 is under, and they have something called the Grand Druid Council or the Octagon, they're called the Illuminati. And the Illuminati are actually run by these 13 bloodlines, which are all of the royal families in Europe and in England. And they need the blood because they are, in fact, not human. They take human shape. They are reptilians. And they need the blood. The blood helps them maintain their reptilian shape, and it helps them maintain their sanity, and it helps them to live in this world because they are not from this world.
Does that relate to what the Nazis call vril power and what the Hindus call the serpent power in the blood?
Yes, the blood has something. It has something in it. It has secretions from the pituitary gland and from the pineal gland, and it has a very strong drug in it that they also, I mean, this is the one that keeps them from going crazy, and it's like heroin or like endorphins, and it's much stronger. But what they need is, for it to be secreted in the blood, is they need terrorization of their victims before they are killed for their blood, or if a young woman is beginning to menstruate, they need the menstrual blood, and they have to terrorize them to get this to come out in the blood and be secreted in the blood.
Is this the what other people have told me about, that at the point of great terror, like the point of sacrifice, there's an adrenaline that enters the bloodstream? Is this what they're looking for?
Yes, that and this other element comes and secretes out through the blood. This all comes out through the blood at that time, and it's at that point they are actually staring into the eyes of the head of at some of these rituals, or at a reptilian. They are staring into the eyes of this person, and they're held. It's a hypnotic gaze these reptilians have, and it holds the victim in an absolute trance, in a trance of terror, and then they are killed at that moment as they are staring into their eyes. And not only do they can't hold their shape when this happens. The
human shape. The
human shape they cannot hold. They go back into reptilian shape as this is happening, because it's like an animalistic type of excitement of the kill. And they oftentimes they will just rip into the victim and eviscerate them and start eating the flesh of this person too. And the fat from the intestinal area is highly valued, as they use it on their skin. And they will drink the blood, and the blood is highly sought after, and it goes according also to rank within these creatures, as to who gets what when. And their sacrifices have increased in the last, it started increasing in the early 80s. The amount that they were doing is increased. And they use a lot of druidic holidays to do this, but they have other days too. They've mixed all of these satanic and what are called satanic holidays and druidic holidays, and in order to have these rituals, which ritual seems to be important to them, but they also use it in order to drink this blood, but they seem to need more.
Have you any idea why it's increased since the 80s?
So there are changes going on in the earth. It seems they're not able to hold their shape like they once were able to, and people see them shapeshift more and more, and they need the blood to try and maintain it, to try and maintain their human form. I believe there's a time coming that because of what I've been told, when they are not going to bother having to hold that human shape as they had to before, and they want that time to come. It's almost upon us.
So when you're talking about the fact that the veil is lifting on these reptilians so that people can see them far more easily and far more often, does this relate in any way to the fact that there is this desire to bring in this rigid structure, including microchipping and many other things, across the year 2000, which has become known as the New World Order? Is that coming in because it is known that the people are going to see what the game is, and there has to be control of the people at that time?
Yes, it's very connected. I started talking about the New World Order back in 1990, and I was very psychologically and physically affected so much by what was coming out. I wasn't watching television. I was not aware that certain individuals in this country, George Bush, were talking about the New World Order. I was talking about it because that is what was coming out, and knowing that the first time that inside of myself that I'd heard it was in conjunction with the Nazis, and that came from Mengele. And I started realizing that there was something going on, and then it scared me. And I didn't really look into it for years, but I was being harassed constantly. I was being told. At one point, I had someone telling me that I was being, and who was ex-Army intelligence, ex-CIA, telling me that I was being monitored by the National Security Agency. And I didn't have the whole story then, so I did not totally understand why this was happening. But yet I was being followed by cars or vans that said G12, G14, and in this last year, which has really been very hard, I've been followed by G41 vans, and I had to find out what those were, and that is naval intelligence. But this whole thing is going towards around the year 2000, and when they are going to establish themselves openly as a new world order, and it's headed toward that, and that's what everything is being prepared to, or prepared for. And I have actually got I've got a sleeping program right now to return, because I've left, but to return for that time, and it's called End Times Programming, or Janus Programming.
And Janus relates back to Nimrod of Babylon.
Yeah, there is a group that used to be in contact with me all the time, and they stopped trying simply because I didn't obey them. They would be in contact with me all the time. They're called Janus, which is also the two-headed Roman god of change, and their headquarters is in Brussels, Belgium, in the NATO building. And they are a group of psychiatrists and doctors who are into mind control, and they are one of the many groups involved with the Illuminati. And they would contact me and tell me, give me directions that I was to psychically kill this person, or psychically injure this person, or scare this person. They'd give me the location. And I started questioning this, and I had a contact who since has seemed to have disappeared because she couldn't get the funding, and I had called her about this group, and she's the one that was the ex-CIA, ex-Army intelligence person, and she knew about these people, and she said, yes, you're right, this is what is going on.
From your experience being brought up in this Illuminati environment, were you ever told anything about where these reptilians came from, and what is the history of it all?
I was made to learn through Mothers of Darkness, which is a certain aspect of the organization, because that was an early part of my training, the history of what was the Illuminati on this planet. And what I learned was that the Aryans originally were from Mars, and the reptilians came to that planet they came from another place. They came to that planet. They came to rule, because they wanted to mix, so they said, with that race, and but they became the overlords. And the Martians or Aryans were seeking to escape from it, they went to the moon and then were there attacked, and they then went to Earth and established culture here on Earth approximately 6,000 years ago. And at that point in time, they were doing well, and they were mixing with the indigenous population of this earth. They were getting along with. And then about 4,000 years ago, the reptilians arrived here and again began to take over. And they instilled themselves in different places underground in the earth, and also this one part of them, the ruling part, took over and became involved in the politics and in the religion, and started controlling through these means at that point in time, and using the gods and deities that were believed in on this planet, started infiltrating into that and becoming that, and things started, blood rituals started happening, and since that time, that is the way that it has been. And presently, they claim to come from the Merovingian bloodline. They are there are 13 bloodlines in Europe that all of what are called royalty are developed from or come from, and they include the Aryans in this, and there's been a big push in this century. For example, when Nazis came into power, the fascists, talking about the purity of being pure and staying, the Aryan bloodline staying pure, and what it actually is all about is keeping the blue-eyed, blonde or light red-haired people, the bloodline's pure because it is more powerful, and what is in that blood for these reptilians is more powerful, and they need that. And when you start mixing it with people that were indigenous to this earth, then it is not as powerful. It has nothing to do with someone's skin color or nationality. It has to do with keeping the bloodline pure for their use.
So blonde-haired, blue-eyed people are the purest from the reptilians' point of view, and that they want to keep that bloodline pure because of how they need to use it.
Yes. When I realized that it had to do with blonde hair and blue eyes, I could not do anything about my eyes, and I am not able to wear contacts or I would have brown eyes. But one thing I did do was cut my hair off, because that was part of the rank I was. My hair was down to my knees, and I colored my hair darker. And there were times when after I did cut it off, they had gotten to me, and so the hair would be light red. But that is being in compliance with them. And I did not want to be in compliance to them. I want to expose them, and this is part of it. And I won't be what they want me to be.
When you look at some of the ancient accounts, like the Sumerian texts and many other accounts, they talk about the gods interbreeding with humanity. Is this relevant to the reptilian way of infiltrating the human race?
Yes, it is, because human beings all through the ages have accepted God's interbreeding or being accepted as humans, and that shows in Christianity, it shows in Judaism. It also, they have used Egyptology or the Egyptian religions a lot, and the present head of the Illuminati compares himself a lot with the Egyptian god Osiris and Horus, which is Osiris reborn, and also with the Arthurian legends of the Round Table, and he has a name. The name that he carries from that is Pindar, which actually means phallus of the dragon. And the other name, Osiris, he has carried because he takes the name at this time, the Marquis de Libero, which means liberator of or from the waters. And the story of Osiris is that he was cut into 14 pieces and thrown into the River Nile, and the one piece, Isis found the pieces and put them back together again, and she could not find the 15th piece, which happened to be the phallus, so a gold phallus was made. And this is very important in this group in the Illuminati. This is important, and it's important to think that about the head of the Illuminati, because what comes from a golden phallus would be a superior seed for a race, and this is how this is what they are doing with all of these bloodlines to keep the bloodlines going, are impregnating Aryan people of Aryan blood that hold high stations with them, impregnating them with this seed of Pindar. And therefore it's important to keep this history in mind and the names in mind that he is going by at this time.
So would it be correct to say that the reptilians came to this planet because the Aryan Martians came to this planet, and had the Aryan Martians gone somewhere else, they'd have followed them there?
They would have pursued them all over the universe, yes.
Can we now go into some specifics about your own experiences? What were you brought up to do? You say that you were identified as a bloodline before you were born. What was the role that you were brought through to play?
The role that I was brought through to play was, as in the Illuminati, was as a goddess. Specifically, the address is Mother Goddess, Starfire. And the Starfire goes back to the blood in the menstrual blood, what is contained in that. And the address, the way that I was addressed, was Mother Goddess. There are only 3 Mother Goddesses. There can only be 3 at a time on this planet, and there is a male equivalent of which there can be only 3 of them.
Why mind control someone to conduct these rituals, like yourself? Why don't these reptilians just conduct their own rituals?
They don't seem to have the psychic abilities, and they look for people that have that, and people in the bloodline that have that. And I've had that. I've had a tremendous amount of psychic ability, and so I was picked and bred from before birth, and this is also something that other survivors that have been in high positions have known about me and told me.
What's the connection then between you having psychic abilities, those being recognized from the start, and you being brought through to conduct their major rituals?
Well, it's kind of twofold. First of all, they needed the psychic abilities because they control or attempt to control events, because I would have the ability to foretell what was going to happen, and they needed the information to just try to control it to an outcome that was good for them. The second thing is that during the rituals, you had to have psychic ability. You have to be very powerful in that way to call out the old ones that are also reptilian, that come from another dimension. They actually they materialize from out of another dimension and are present at rituals, and they are so powerful, and their presence is there's such an evilness about them, and they want out of this other dimension, and they can't. They have to be called out by someone who has that power, and the reptilians don't have this power. That's very important. That they don't have this power to call out these old ones that have to do with them. And
what is it that humans have that the reptilians don't have, that means they don't have the power to connect interdimensionally, and some humans do?
We have the ability to foresee, to be able to become vibrationally higher, and see into those levels, go into those levels, and in fact, agencies use this. They call it remote viewing. Humans have the ability to go into the past, to go into the future, to go to other places, to astrally leave their body, astrally, and to see things that we've always had this ability, and it's like having the third eye, which they don't have. They don't have this ability. So during a ritual, these old ones are called out, and they are what Christianity would have called the demons. They are called out, and there is a circle that it has a hexagon in there, which is a powerful occultic symbol, and then there is a pentagram, and then there in the middle of that there is a triangle, and if you're the one calling them out, then you stand in the triangle so that you're not devoured or taken by these creatures that come out.
That creates an energy field around you which they can't penetrate.
They can't penetrate it, and they cannot get outside the pentagram. And they want out. They're always demanding to be let out. And so you have to be very powerful to keep them in line and to make them go back when it is time for them to go back.